Hey guys, so for today's lesson, we're going to be investigating Ellis Island, which was one of the major areas for immigrants to enter the United States. Here on this map, it shows us the entry to Ellis Island in New Jersey, but it actually entered into the harbor of New York. So if you click this little link here on this slides, it should lead you to this website right here as it's loading. And it's going to tell us more information about Ellis Island. There's a video that you can view by clicking this little button right here, and it actually shows you some really cool footage of the immigration station and what it would have been like for immigrants entering in. But let's go ahead and read a little bit more about Ellis Island before we take a virtual field trip. It says in 1892, President Benjamin Harrison designated Ellis Island in New York Harbor as the nation's first immigration station. At the time, people traveled across the Atlantic Ocean by steamship to the bus line of New York City. The trip took 1 to 2 weeks, which still seemed like a long time to me, but was much faster than trips in the past to go across the Atlantic Ocean. So these ships were one of the huge factors that allowed people to immigrate to the United States. For many immigrants, one of their first sights in America was the welcoming beacon of the Statue of Liberty, which was dedicated in 1886 and was a gift to us from the French. Immigrants were left on their ships to be processed at Ellis Island before they could enter the country. About 12 million immigrants would pass through Ellis Island during its time of operation. Many of them were from Southern and Eastern Europe. If you remember that pie chart we looked at yesterday, we know that over 75% of the immigrants that came to America came from Europe. They included Russians, Italians, Greeks, Polish, Serbs, and Turks. All right, so let's take a little tour of the immigration station. It says, in fact, more than 40% of Americans can trace their family history back to Ellis Island, which is pretty cool. Almost half of the people living in America today have an ancestor that probably came through the immigration station at Ellis Island. It says, follow in your immigrant's footsteps by taking this tour. You'll hear firsthand stories told by people who came through Ellis Island, see historical photographs and films, read fascinating facts, and discover the central role this station played in the story of American immigration. So we're going to be looking at a lot of primary sources. All right, so here it is. This is the passage. It says most immigrants who came to America through Ellis Island were from Eastern and Southern Europe. They came to escape poverty and religious intolerance. They wanted to believe. However, they wanted to believe without persecution. They came from small towns and countries such as Italy, Poland, and Russia. They started on foot, horseback, or train, and then finally were able to get on board a steamship. They went all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, which the trip lasted 1 to 2 weeks. And the passengers were divided by their wealth. So maybe you were like a first-class citizen that would be able to ride more comfortably than some of the more poor citizens. Most people were third class. They were called steerage, and they were in a large open space at the bottom of the ship, kind of in like a bunk bed type area. As many as 3,000 people crowded the ships. They often came from different countries, spoke different languages, and belonged to different religions. So all of these different types of people are all piled on one ship, which is pretty cool. So then we can see some photos here. These are people making their way to the steamboats, getting loaded on. You can see tons of people here on this ship. We can see some little children. They're excited to become Americans, and they're dancing because they're glad to be joining in the country of the United States. All right, second stop, the arrival. So the trip was rough. The ships were very crowded and dirty. They were very tired when they got there. They saw the Statue of Liberty first, and so that's going to kind of cheer them up. They'd says some would weep with joy. Health officers would board the ship in the harbor and look for signs of disease. If you showed signs of disease, you were not going to be allowed to get off the boat because they didn't want you to bring diseases over that could infect our population here in the United States, kind of like how coronavirus has done today. Third-class passengers would have to wait for hours or days until they could get to this step. All right, so here's some photos. People are waiting. There's the Statue of Liberty. They're so excited. They're ready to get checked. Okay. This person here has a lot of little spots on their face. This person would probably not pass the medical inspection to get off of the boat, which is sad. They came all this way and wouldn't be able to come. All right, third stop. Here, we're in the baggage room. All right, so the officers wearing uniforms greeted them, told them to walk on down the gangplank to the main building. They passed out numbered identity tags. The people did not speak English, were unsure of what they were saying, and I'm sure it was pretty overwhelming. They were carrying all of their suitcases, and finally, they would enter into this red brick building. Wearing their numbered tags, the immigrants entered the baggage room on the building's ground floor. They had to leave their baggage here until the inspection was done. So they would go through their baggage, kind of like today if we were to get on an airplane, making sure they didn't bring anything that didn't need to enter into the United States. All right, here are some people entering in with all of their baggage, their inspection cards. Pretty neat to see. All right, the fourth stop, the stairs. They began the winding stairs that led to the registry room. Doctors stood on the second floor and watched each person. They looked if someone had trouble walking or breathing or showed signs of health problems. Once again, they didn't want people to bring diseases in. There were a few pictures. All right, finally, we get to the registry room. It was also nicknamed the Great Hall because it was so big. It was a rectangular room that was over 200 feet long and 102 feet wide, and many immigrants had never seen such a large indoor space. There were long metal rails that helped keep people in line, make sure no one cut, and they would go through medical and legal inspections. Wooden benches were added because it was going to be a long wait, and there was the sound of thousands of voices bouncing off the vaulted ceilings. All right, so the officials would decide whether each person could enter the country right away or whether that person's case required further review. They weren't going to let any criminals into the United States as well. All right, so they were checked for different contagious eye diseases and many other different things. So here in the registry room, let's look at some photos. Pretty interesting to see how they were all in line trying to get inspected. Okay. So after the registry room comes the medical exam. They had a 6-second physical. All right. A uniformed doctor looked for any signs of illness. They noticed if they were limp, short of breath, if their eyes were red, and they would just pretty much say, okay, if you're good, you can come on in. If not, you're going to have to go back. All right. And so sometimes people were upset with their outcome. All right. So if they were good, they would get some of these different marks that represented different things. All right. The legal inspection. Each arriving steamship crew gave officials at Ellis Island a list of names of the passengers on board. So once their name was called, that passenger would go up and they would speak with a uniformed inspector and pretty much were just making sure that they were the person that they claimed to be. They had questions like, where were you born? Are you married? What is your occupation? Have you ever convicted a crime? How much money do you have? What is your destination? They needed a lot of information to allow you into America. All right, here were some people getting inspected. Pretty cool to look at. All right, detainees. These were the people that did not get to pass, and they often passed through what was called the Isle of Tears. Legal detainees lived in a dormitory room on the third floor. They could wait there for a few days or even a month. Then their case would be reviewed in the hearing room, and they'd officially decide, okay, are you going to be allowed to pass or not? The people who were detained for medical reasons were cared for at the island's hospital or kept in quarantine. Some were treated for weeks or even months. Eventually, a board of special inquiry would review and decide whether they would allow them in or send them back. And it says over 355 babies were born on Ellis Island while they were waiting. It's a long time to wait. Here was the hospital. People are being cared for, little babies. Sweet. All right. And then the stairs of separation. Okay, so people would either go People who were going west or south walked down the right side. Those going to New York walked down the north side. And at the bottom of the stairs was a post office or ticketing office for the railways and social workers to help them who needed assistance. So pretty much all of these people now went their separate ways. All right, here they are trying to get to their destination. And the kissing post. All right, this is where family and friends waited for their loved ones. After months or years apart, they kissed and hugged and shouted with joy and relief. For the immigrants, the long journey was finally over. They were in America. This is where their family members would welcome them in. Okay, so here's some happy pictures of people seeing their family coming in. All right, and that should be the last stop. All right, so I want you to take all of this information and tell me, what do you think it felt like being an immigrant at this time? Provide evidence to support your thinking. I want you to write that on your exit ticket, and then we will be talking about another immigration experience tomorrow.